You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
And it looks like we are live. I'm going to give John Cronenberg, the Moana Beast, John K. MHH, the man behind the scenes, a second for the thumbs up on the Mile High Huddle Superfan group on Facebook. We are good to go. Mile High hello, everybody in Broncos country. Welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I'm your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me, as per usual, is my good friend and colleague. He is Mile High Huddle senior NFL draft analyst, the one and only Erick Trickel. Erick, what's up, man? How are we doing today?
Doing pretty good. It's been another rough week, but better than the last week was. Just things of getting spit on, getting yelled at. Yeah, it's just a fun time,
Yeah.
But weather's warming up. It's starting to get nice out here in Alaska, which means that it's getting ready, really close to be fishing time. Getting to be out on a boat and on the water and everything like that. Just catching halibut, catching salmon, all that stuff. Going to be a super fun time. Super excited for the show. Unfortunately, of course, we're going to have some kind of big news that it's bad news for the Broncos. I mean, depending on how you look at it, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. Longer, but yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Super excited to, as always. And then, of course, tomorrow, Saturday morning at 12 Mountain Time, there's going to be the next episode of the Trickle Zone, which is going to be talking about the top 10 wide receivers and top 5 quarterbacks, which also is a little bit relevant for the show tonight. And I see that Gavin has his new profile picture up there that he sent to us on Twitter saying that he would, man. Absolutely love it, Gavin.
Love it.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah, man. I got some unfortunate news today. Sounds like I'm going to have to move about 10 minutes outside of town, because the good side of that is yesterday I put an offer in on a house, and today at about 4:30 this afternoon, my offer got accepted. So it sounds like we're going to be buying a house here soon. So unfortunately, I have to move, but also at the same time, really fun time. Me and Samantha very excited. It's a really nice place. It's big enough for all of us, just kind of quaint enough that it's not going to be overbearing or anything like that. Very excited, very, very excited. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. I kind of have to run early tonight. I got to go upstairs and take care of the kids and whatnot. But also at the same time, just excited to be here and with you guys. We got a great show planned for you guys. Another Super Chat Superstar mock draft. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to get the Super Chat Superstar. We got a special guest for you. We'll get to that here.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Let's get into this, Erick. I'm really, really excited. Why don't you give a breakdown of what happened with the Super Chat Superstar mock draft here?
So Glenn Hauser actually ended up being the winner, and we reached out to Glenn, and unfortunately he wasn't able to join us tonight. And so we kind of rebounded. We reached out to somebody else as a runner-up, and he never got back to us, which he's in the chat here. So, Gavin, you may want to check your Twitter messages, man. You had a chance to join us, but you just never got back to us. So we ended up just talking about it and deciding that we're just going to go bring in a second guest, because at this point I didn't have the list of who all super chatted to be entered or anything like that. And so we reached out to a guy that I've just recently come to follow on Twitter, just within like the last month or so. And very smart guy, knows his football, knows his Broncos. And he's been a really good, really joyful to follow and talk to and interact with. So let's go ahead and bring him in here. Zach is with Mile High Sports. And Zach, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became a Broncos fan?
Oh man, working with Mile High Sports, find my work over there, and I've been working. And thanks for having me on as well. I became a Broncos fan when I was like 6 or 7. It's hazy because it was so young. I think it was a 2005 preseason game, so I would have been 6, against the Houston Texans. I believe the Broncos won that game. And then I went to a game later that season or the next season where they lost in the regular season to the 49ers. And that kind of blossomed my love of the team. My aunt had season tickets and was like, hey, you guys want to come? And I went and I just fell in love with it. And I got hooked and became like super obsessed. Like I remember watching the 07 draft when like Clady was picked. and not knowing a thing and being like, I don't know, I got some tackle from Boise. I think it's good. Played on another team called the Broncos. That seems like a good omen. But yeah, from there it's just like grown and grown. And I've fallen in love, especially with like the draft side and the player personnel, and kind of trying to figure out how to best build this team and configure it and put it together.
Yeah, man. Chilling here with Zach Segars at Mile High Sports, at Zach_Segars on Twitter, guys. Really good stuff from Zach. Had some really cool offseason stuff that he's done. Now, I kind of want your opinion here, just a little bit on what George Paton has done with this Broncos team, the moves that he's made, bringing in, Kyle Fuller, Ronald Darby, getting Justin Simmons back, which we already knew that he was going to do. That was a priority for him. Retaining Shelby Harris, keeping Von Miller. What do you think of George Paton so far?
I mean, I think he's knocking it out of the park. I hope he takes a quarterback, but I can't really take much issue with his moves. 3 years for Ronald Darby, given his injury history, is a little dicey. You could argue Miller's an overpay, but if he hit the open market, he's signing for $16 million, and I'd rather have him for $2 million above market than have to fill a needed edge. Which, yes, edge is still a need, but it would have been much, much worse with him off the roster. So like those are the moves that have received the most criticism, and I think like they're okay. Oh, and like letting Philip Lindsay go, which I don't think is all that bad. Like I love Lindsay. I'm a CU, not alum student, I guess. Boulder native. We love Philip Lindsay, but I don't know. It's not good business to be paying running backs, and this let him go out and get some money elsewhere. And also he wasn't a good fit. So I think even his quote unquote questionable moves are pretty justifiable. So limited sample size, but AA plus so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric, you got anything else for Zach before we get into this?
Yeah, I gotta say, it's like I kind of with you on that Darby deal. The 3 years with his injury history, only has 1 year fully played, and we kind of got bit in the butt with that a little bit with Bryce Callahan. But one thing that I really like about this is, much like Bryce Callahan's, you have that way out after the year 2. So if you don't get 2 healthy years out of him of good level play, you can cut bait and move on. And I like the fact that the other thing that I really like with George Paton with what he's done is not just Ronald Darby, but Shelby Harris, is getting these 2 players for just $8 million against the cap this year. It's just great with the year that the cap's going down. It's allowed them to be so flexible with other moves that they made, being able to get Kyle Fuller. I agree with you. It's been AA plus. Obviously, that Philip Lindsay move is going to rub some people the wrong way, but there's a bunch of statistics out there that show that he's been declining actually since his rookie season. And kind of the thing that you got to do with running backs, since running backs don't matter, is you use them up and abuse them when they're young and on rookie deals or cheap deals, and then you don't pay them.
Yeah. Another thing that really kind of stuck out to me was just, as you said, Eric, getting Ronald Darby and Shelby Harris on $8 million against the cap this year. Justin Simmons and that big long-term extension with that signing bonus dropping that base pay. I think his cap hits like $5.5 or $6 million this year as well. So he got 3 premium players at need positions. Well, obviously with Justin Simmons wanting to come back for like what, $14 million against the cap this year. Now, guys, big news earlier today with the Miami Dolphins and the San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers gave up number 12 overall, the 2022 first-round pick, a 2022 third-round pick, and a 2023 first-round pick to move up to number 3 overall to potentially go and target a quarterback. Rod the Bro jumping in here on Super Chat. I hate that the Niners got the 3rd pick, but we can still get the 4th. I understand we need depth, but with Locke under center, are we scaring any teams despite our upgrades with an average quarterback? Zach, what do you think?
Depth is important, and I don't think there's a wrong answer here. We'll get to it with the mock draft, but I think you can trade back and make an argument for that path. I mean, ideally, Locke making a jump and trading back and getting that value to build up backups or to build up that depth and get replacements in the wings. That's the ideal scenario. It comes down to how much do you believe in Locke. I don't believe in Locke much at all. I think it's all about a quarterback. Yes, maybe the injuries will kill you because you don't have much depth, but you need to find that quarterback. And if it's a guy like Justin Fields, who appears to be the league's quarterback 4 right now, I mean, do it. Like I love Justin Fields. I'm so high on that quarterback prospect. I think you're looking at a guy who can be a superstar in in the league for years to come. And maybe he does go fourth, but Deshaun Watson went third in 2017. Like, I don't know why the league is low on this guy, but I think it's going to go, not that he's a similar prospect, but it's going to go similarly to how Deshaun Watson went, where we're like, how did this guy go as low as he did? We were all overthinking it. We shouldn't have overthought as much as we did because he was a great prospect.
Yeah, man. Eric, what do you think?
I definitely agree. And I just got to ask, is Fields your quarterback too for this year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's mine as well, man. I'm with you. I don't get why the NFL seems to be so low on him. Like, I saw something that was breaking down about Ohio State's passing game, and every receiver on every single play, they're running option routes. So, like, maybe that's why. But I would think that NFL coaches and scouts would be able to see past that a little bit. So it's something that can explain the media love. But I don't know. It's weird to me. And I would happily take him, moving up for him. And this is a league where you have to have a quarterback to win it all. And we saw that with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Without Tom Brady, they had Jameis Winston, and they were not a good team. They kept most of that team intact, added a few pieces here and there. But the biggest was they added Tom Brady, and boom, they're Super Bowl champions. The Kansas City Chiefs, they have a really good team. We saw that the limitations of what the quarterback, you do have to have the pieces around him, but that quarterback still got them to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Just that supreme talent is you can get there with a quarterback. You can win it with the quarterback. You're just not doing anything if you don't have a quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest things that you'll see with the Broncos this year, and it is really kind of riding on Drew Lock or what they do with the quarterback position. They're young across the offense. They've got young pass catching options. Cortland Sutton should be coming back. The offensive line looks to be pretty well in top shape, especially if Juwan James wants to come back and play, because when he is healthy, he's a really, really high quality right tackle. So you've got a solid offensive line, a decent running game with Melvin Gordon, some weapons to distribute the football to. Hopefully Noah Fant takes another step forward this year as well. But then that defense, with all the moves that George Payton has made to get this defense rebuilt as quickly as he has. Yeah, they need to address the linebacker position. They're going to get Justin Sternad back as well, but get another linebacker, probably a day 2 guy, because I really value the day 2 linebackers this year. But that's a top 5 defense in the making, especially with Vic Fangio pulling the puppet strings, So if it's Lock, or maybe you want to go in a different direction, to me, my preferred option is to go and get Sam Darnold right now, because I think you're going to be able to get him for cheap, because I think that the Jets are going to fall in love with Zach Wilson and probably take him number 2 overall. So picture this as like the Kyler Murray deal, the Josh Rosen, Kyler Murray situation, where they're going to go and restart that quarterback market, or the cost control quarterback over again, and they're going to dangle out Sam Darnold. If you can get him for a 3 and a 5, I think the Broncos need to do that all day, because you need a couple of premium picks at the position. You can trade out a number 9 and whatnot, but you go and you get some quality quarterback competition. I think Sam Darnold has a higher ceiling than Drew Lock for sure. And if you put some weapons around him and give him an offensive line that it can actually pass protect for him, I think that this offense can really take another step forward. And this is if not a borderline playoff team, at least a wild card team. That's just my personal opinion.
The big issue with Darnold is that he just sees ghosts.
Yeah.
That's the big issue with him. Is that fixable? In my experience doing this with quarterbacks that I've seen start seeing ghosts, it's not something that's fixable.
No. Zach, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I like the Darnold idea just because it's a way of keeping swinging. If the Broncos view this move, like let's say the Falcons are set on a quarterback at 4, which I don't think they are, but let's just say they are, at that point, quarterback's out of the question for the Broncos. It sucks, but now how else can you take a swing at a potential solution if you aren't able to draft a guy? Trade for Sam Darnold. It's, a low cost, and maybe the Gase situation really was that bad. I mean, if we went back to before the Ryan Tannehill trade and we're talking about the prospects of trading for Ryan Tannehill, no one would have been high on it. I think, to be fair, Tannehill showed more than Darnold's shown. Darnold just has more talent and an upside and physical gifts and has those wow plays. But yeah, why not add him? Or I guess the only concern for me, why not? The only concern is, are you taking away reps away from Locke and Darnold in a hypothetical quarterback competition that is more legitimate than a Foles or a Dalton type, where it limits the likelihood of either popping and taking that big leap you would need them to make into 2021? No,
that's a great point. That's a very good point. I didn't really think about it like that. With Sam Darnold being 3 years in the league and having almost 2.5 full seasons worth of starts underneath his belt. I think that you can kind of work around that just a little bit with him, kind of like with a Foles or with like a Teddy Bridgewater, maybe not even a Teddy Bridgewater because he had that nasty knee injury, but still at the same time, there's enough starts you can work with Sam Darnold. It's just going to be picking up this complex verbiage in the Pat Shurmur scheme. So, but anyways, guys, we got to move this forward. Let's get this mock draft started up. Eric, why don't you go ahead and pull that up and get everything going? We're going to grab some more of these super chats here in just a few minutes. ER, thank you for jumping in with a $5. Nothing to say, just showing some love. We appreciate you, buddy. Rod, I got you another one here in just a few minutes as well. Now, Zach, as we kind of explained to you before, the way that we do this, you are George Payton. We are going to be your scouting department, and you get to make all of the moves here. So the draft has not started yet, and the Broncos could potentially make a move up and go get a quarterback. Is that something that you're willing to entertain?
Yeah, I would definitely entertain it. And that's the one thing. There is a lot of doom and gloom, and the 49ers trade isn't great for the Broncos. I'm not going to try to spin it like that. It's not good. But I don't think it's game over at the quarterback position. Lance has been heavily tied to the Falcons at 4. And if I were them, I would have drafted a quarterback. But after they restructured Ryan's deal, it's not impossible, really difficult to get out of it before the 2022 season. And at that point, I think Lance's rawness is overrated anyways. Are you going to sit the guy for 2 full years behind Matt Ryan? It seems to me like this team thinks they are much closer than they are, and they're going to probably try to trade back, get value. And what other teams are trading up for a quarterback? The only one I think is the Patriots at 15, who has, way less talented youth. And I know we don't want to give up a Bradley Chubb or whatever, but the Patriots don't even have the option to do that. And then the Broncos are also picking higher in each round this year. So they can give up more in a trade up. So I think if George Payton wants to get a quarterback and is willing to pay the price, that's the important part. They can do it. I really don't think this move makes it impossible for the Broncos to pull it off.
Yeah. So
and one thing that you said with Matt Ryan's restructure is when I was looking at that is sure they could try to get out of his deal next year, but they eat a lot of dead money for it, and it would have to be a
$40 million,
basically starting over. And I think that it's more likely what we see them do is Matt Ryan plays out the rest of his contract with them just constantly pushing the dead money down the road. And he's got 3 years left. I don't see them taking a quarterback and wasting 3 years of cost control, sitting behind Matt Ryan, at the very least 2 years. And it's just a waste of resources. I think that this would be a good spot to try to trade up if you want one of these quarterbacks. Because I think looking at it now, I think it's a pretty safe bet to say it's going to be Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance as the first 3 picks. I feel pretty confident in saying that's going to be the way it is. So if you want Justin Fields, number 4 is going to be at. Is going to be where you want to go? Is that where you want to try to move up to? Is 4 for Fields?
I think I want to give it a try, but I don't want to sacrifice too much mid-round value. So I'm going to lead on my scouting department here to try to think what can we give up to try to make this happen. I'd say obviously we're giving up the first. Probably going to have to give up the second as well. The 2 top 40 picks. Yeah, it's going to be expensive. What's the starting point? It's going to, 3 firsts and a third, I think was what the Niners did, but they moved up further.
Yeah, they moved up further. So I think that we could probably get away. Let's see, it was their first this year, next year, and the year after, and a third.
Yeah, third next year.
I think we could probably get away with doing a future first and a future second, maybe with another round future third in there.
Yeah. What if we do, I'm going to go full Rams here and say first round picks are overrated. And let's say, especially if you hit on this quarterback, you're picking in the 20s. Let's go 3 firsts. I'm gonna totally copy their deal, and that way I get to keep my mid-round picks this year, build up that depth, get rid of the second in 2021, and maybe a third either this year or next. 3 firsts and a third, kind of mirror. Maybe that's too much value because the Niners moved up more.
I was gonna say, I was going to say I would drop out that other third. If you're going to go 3 first, you just go the 3 first. If you're going to go quite honestly, I think that you could probably go a first this year, a first next year, and probably a third next year, and you might be able to get that deal done. You may have to throw in a fifth as well. So do like a 1 this year, a 5 this year, a first next year, and a third next year.
That sounds great. Let's do that.
I think that should probably get that done. Yeah, I think that should
very likely. Let's get it.
Let's send offer. Let's see what they do. So obviously we're looking at one of the quarterbacks here. You're not looking up. Falcons seem to accept it.
All right. I see people don't like the 3 firsts. Let me just say, the Rams have been giving up 8 first-round picks in a row and have gotten nothing out of it except for a defensive back, and they're doing fine. The worst they've done, they finished 7th. They finished 7th in the NFC. That's the worst they've done. It's gonna be fine if you get the quarterback. That's all that matters. Also, I'm keeping a number of picks in the mid rounds so we can address the depth there. That's where George Payton has earned this GM job by drafting great players in the mid rounds. Look at his last 5 first-round picks. Look at the Vikings' last 5 first-round picks, and tell me you wouldn't trade all 5 of them for a franchise quarterback.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
And that's the biggest thing here is we're trading up for a quarterback. Like there's unlimited value for a quarterback pretty much. Especially like when people are talking about going and trading for a Deshaun Watson, 3 firsts, 3 seconds, get you in the door. You're probably going to have to throw in 2 defensive players. Like, is that worth it? Because the way that this roster is kind of set up, this was prior to free agency. Well, now you could potentially throw in like let's say a Michael Ojemudia or a Bradley Chubb or something like that, a couple of young defensive players with some upside that the Broncos could get rid of to go and get a Deshaun Watson. But if you go and get Deshaun Watson, you don't have to give up Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant, or any of the offensive linemen. If you can insert Deshaun Watson, that's the best surrounding cast that he has had in his entire NFL career, and he led the NFL in passing yards last season with a terrible offensive line. That would be a top 5 offense, maybe even a top 3 offense, and that's been something that this Broncos team has been missing. Vic Fangio can overcome a little bit of a lack of talent on the defensive side of the football, so long as the offense doesn't put him in 31 different situations where a team is starting inside of the 50-yard line in plus territory. If the Broncos can remain competitive and give this defense just a little bit of a break, there's no value that you can get to go and get a Deshaun Watson. So if you're going to give up 3 first-round picks to go and get a Justin Fields, so long as he turns into that guy, I think you almost have to do this. So what do we got on the board here, Eric?
Real quick first of all, chat, chill out. Like this is a mock draft and everything like that. It's not what's going to happen or anything like that. Just take a chill pill, just relax. Breathe, deep breath in, deep breath out. Now, the biggest thing is you are nothing without a quarterback. So, yeah, it's going to cost a little bit to go up and get it. I understand 3 first-round picks. That's a little rough. I mean, I understand it's hard to swallow, but we saw that's what the price is with the San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers are a team that they have a really good defense. They have good weapons. They have a good running game. Their offensive line is solid. What's the issue? Quarterback. And we saw them be aggressive to go get it. George Payton says he wants to be aggressive. Granted, he wants to be cautiously aggressive. And this is it. Is you're going up and you're getting a quarterback. You improve this quarterback play on this team that the Broncos had. This is a team that is pushing for the playoffs. With what they did on this defense, I believe that this defense alone can help get you at least 6 or 7 wins. You just got to improve that quarterback play. That's what it is. The only quarterback that's left on the board is Justin Fields, and as we've been talking about, you're moving up for a quarterback. So I'm assuming Fields will be the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And look at misses. Like you could look at hits like Deshaun Watson and Mahomes, teams giving up a lot to go up and secure their quarterback. Look at misses like Goff and Wentz. If those teams don't make those trades, they don't get to the Super Bowl. And we'd call those trades maybe misses now. Trading up for a quarterback and trading all those assets is fine. Look at a lot of these teams' first-round picks. Look at like the Seahawks who are in the playoffs or at least in the conversation every year. Look at their first-round picks. You don't need first-round picks to be successful. They are no asset depreciates faster than a first-round pick. They are great when they're in your pocket, but the moment you use them on a player, it tanks. Josh Rosen's rookie year was really bad, but it dropped from a top 10 pick to a late second-round pick or mid-second round pick. In a single season, not even 16 starts. Yeah, it immediately goes down. Outside of the rare, like you draft a Julio Jones and it appreciates. It's so like people overvalue first round picks a lot. I'd much rather give up 3 first round picks and hold up to the 5 second round picks or 6, 7, 8 mid round picks I would have had to give up to equal those first round picks.
Yeah.
And here's actually one question that I want to. Mitch Mann says, I like this move, but realistically, would Peyton give away 3 first rounders of 5 years tenure? Food for thought. That's the big question. And I thought that it was 6 years.
It is 6 years.
I think it's 6.
It is 6 years.
You could totally question if it's realistic. If I'm doing like what I think will happen, I don't think the Broncos will do this. If I'm doing my mock to make the Broncos the best team I think they could be, I'm doing this because I think history suggests, recent history especially, that it's so much more likely you have a rookie quarterback ball out on that rookie contract than Locke ever having a single season of top 10 quarterback play. There's more examples in the past decade of a rookie quarterback coming in and playing like a top 10 quarterback than there are of quarterbacks like Locke after 17 games of struggling bouncing back.
Yeah.
And one thing you said, just touch on, is that you are absolutely right. This is what he would do to make the Broncos better. It's not what Peyton would do. So it's not necessarily going for realism. But if Peyton wants to move up for a quarterback, we saw the price. We saw what the 49ers gave up to get to number 3. That's going to be what the Falcons are going to be asking for. And they can get something similar to that because that is the last spot for the good quarterbacks in this class. Yep. I mean, I know that Goat Corkle is still in here, but come on now. I mean, it's there's a reason why Goat Corkle is a joke. I mean,
yeah. Well, and that's
right scheme. Everything has to be perfect around him, but he's just not worth it. So you want to go get one of those top 4 guys.
Right, absolutely. And as Dylan Von Arch just flashed up there from John, go big or go home. Like if you want a quarterback, you got to go and get the guy. You can't just expect him to fall in your lap unless you have like an 0-16 season, because even the Jets messed that up. Like everyone thought that the Jets were going to land with the number 1 overall pick for 3/4 of the season. They managed to win a game, and then the Jacksonville Jaguars had them on a tiebreaker. Now they have the number 1 overall pick. They're going to go and get a generational type of a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. And the Jets have questions to answer. Are they going to go with the Zach Wilson, or are they going to stay with Sam Darnold? Now, I want to grab the super chat from Based Gase here, a $5 super with the greatest profile picture in all of Mile High Huddle community, man. That's such just glorious stuff. What's the plan now for the draft? Either trade to Ford to get Fields or Lance, or trade for Darnold, Minshew, etc. What do you guys prefer? We kind of laid that out just a little bit there, but I wanted to give you a shout out for that. Grab another couple here while I'm right here. Contender View coming in with $1.99. Would you guys be mad with Elijah Vera Tucker at pick 9? Eric, I'm going to let you take this one away.
Now, Elijah Vera Tucker is a guy that I would stand on the table, and if I had pants on, I'd actually stand on the table for him. But I absolutely love him. I love what he can bring. I love the versatility. I know he's got a little bit of shorter arms than you'd want for a tackle, but he's got enough tricks up his sleeve to where those 32 and I think 2/8 inch or whatever they were, 32 something inch arms, it's not a major negative for me because he's got those tricks up his sleeve. Plus he can play all 5 positions on it. I think that his ability to play center is more of a projection, but he's got this value similarly to Rashawn Slater. So at 9, I don't think I would love it, but I'd be okay with it. I mean, you're just boosting your offensive line depth with the piece that can just play anywhere on it. Now, getting back to the mock draft, try to speed things up here. There were a couple trades on it, and I just accidentally closed out of them. But
that's fine.
We're sitting at 40 here, and basically the first question is, would you be wanting to try to trade down from 40 to kind of try to recoup, not necessarily those first-round picks, but extra picks for extra value to try and negate the loss a little bit or take somebody?
Yeah, it's definitely tempting. I think just I would pick with my board and go, I want to get another top 40 player that can help my team win. If I'm getting this quarterback, I don't know. I kind of want to have some quick success with it. It depends on the trades, honestly, but I know we're trying to move things along. So just looking at the board, I see some tackles that I would absolutely love. That's one way for this house of cards to come crashing down, is if Jawan James, I don't think he will, but if he does miss another 13 games, I'm seeing some Pat Freiermuth. I don't love that value, but Ronnie Perkins, Joseph Asai, Kelvin Joseph, Davion Nixon. There's some interesting names in there. Tackle's one of the needs I keep going back to. If it's not a need this year, it's going to be one next year.
Yeah.
And between those two, what are your guys' thoughts on the tackles? Do you lean one way or the other?
So
my gut's saying Eichenberg.
So Eichenberg, I think that there's some athleticism issues there. If he's nice and long, good play strength, good balance and stuff like that. Dylan Radins wasn't even the best offensive tackle on that offensive line. That goes to Cordell Volson, in my opinion. No, I'm just playing. Eric and I have this thing about Cordell Volson because he put in our group chat one time that watch Cordell Volson and tell me who he reminds you of. So I went in and took a look at him and actually watched him from this year, that Central Arkansas game. And there was one particular play that Trey Lance took off. I think it was a bootleg or a busted protection or something like that. And Trey Lance went running down the field as fast as he possibly could. And Cordell Volson was sprinting down the field behind him with his head on a swivel looking for somebody. I'm like, holy crap, that is Garrett Bowles 2.0. And it's crazy. So Cordell Volson for me. I like both of these guys, but to me, I think that a bigger need that you're going to be able to address here with the player number 44 overall on the board is Baron Browning, the linebacker from Ohio State.
I glanced over that.
There's a lot of versatility with him. You can line him up at edge if you want him to and have him rush the passer. He's a good blitzer up from the off-ball position, has enough speed and athleticism as a versatile coverage linebacker, and that's going to be an instant upgrade over Josie Jewell, in my opinion. And to me, that would be the way that I'm leaning because this is where the value for the linebackers really starts. And if you're looking at Micah Parsons at 9, there's no reason why you shouldn't be looking at Baron Browning at number 40 overall. Eric, what do you think there?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Is as much as I think tackle's a big need, and it's always a position that you want to address the year before it's actually a need. I like the depth of this class. I like guys like Tommy Doyle, maybe late or somewhere day 3. Spencer Brown, maybe round 3, depending on if he falls there. Something like that. So I'd be looking at linebackers. And Lance talked about Baron Browning. Another guy I would pound the table for is Jamin Davis.
Yeah,
I like what he can bring. And after seeing what Vic Fangio was able to do with Roquan Smith, I view Jamin Davis very similarly to how I viewed Roquan Smith with what they could do and what they couldn't do. And I think that would be a really good way to go within this defense, getting basically Vic Fangio's poor man's version of Roquan Smith. And Browning's great too. And another player is, and this is one that just because I love defensive backs and you can never have too many, Elijah Molden. And he just screams Vic Fangio defensive back to me.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like my boy Richie Grant is on the board here. So if you're going to have to, if we did want to go with there he is. Look at that. They actually dropped his value here. Holy cow, I did not realize that they dropped him down. So never mind. Richie Grant is still on the board here. That is my guy. # we stand Grant in this household. Zach, go ahead.
I had glanced over the Baron Browning one, so I'm glad you guys saw it. I needed to lean on my scouting team for this one. I got the vaccine today, so I'm a little out of it. But yeah, I would definitely roll with Baron Browning. I like Jamin Davis too. I'm a little higher on Browning. But yeah, that's my gut. I'd roll with Browning there.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Yeah, not a bad pick. And like I said, this is a guy that plugs in immediately as an upgrade over Josie Jewell, which everybody knows was not necessarily a liability, but he was not very good. Like he got picked on quite a bit, but there was still some flashes. And I think that he's a good rotational player for this defense. But Baron Browning and the ability to upgrade that and slot him alongside Alexander Johnson for the next year with that restricted free agent tender for him, that just makes a lot of sense to me. I'm going to go grab a couple more of these super chats while we still have a chance here before we get into that. I got a couple of old ones that I don't want to disappear on us if the content or the chat stream jumps on us. Ben jumping in here. If we don't figure out the quarterback position, will we waste Fangio's defense and our young core of weapons? We can't be the Chicago Bears 2.0. # trade up to 4. Absolutely. Zach, yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Zach,
love it.
Love that.
That's the thing is you don't want to waste what Peyton did to build this defense and everything on the hopes that Drew Lock it becomes somebody that we've never seen before. The type of leap he has to make, we have never seen a quarterback make that type of leap ever. Everybody always wants to bring up Josh Allen. Well, his statistics kind of took that leap. There was all these other context variables in there. Like, look at that team he had his rookie year. Those receivers, like they were garbage, and they went and got more help around him. So statistically, he took this big jump. But when you watch his tape, the same flashes you were seeing this year, he was showing his rookie year.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It wasn't that he suddenly just put all these things together. They were there. He just got better talent around him.
And with Josh Allen, we haven't seen before. Like, teams are going to give some rookies or guys on rookie deals more time than they would normally because they saw Josh Allen hit. And most of the teams that do that are not going to be rewarded for it. It's going to end up costing them. Will some teams be rewarded? Sure. I mean, when you look at it, there are outliers. Are the Broncos that outlier? I don't think so. I think it's far more likely than not that they get burned. When you look at the examples, there's far more Blake Bortles and Mitch Trubisky's than there are Josh Allen's.
Yeah, absolutely. Christian Garris jumping in here with the $5 super, just dropping in to show some love at work right now. I'll catch up after hashtag state of being. Yes, absolutely. Broncos country is not a geographical location. I mean, as Call of Duty is here, shout out from Southern California. This is the best pod on the channel, no cap. 4 quarterbacks I have my eye on for next year if they take big steps are Desmond Ridder, Jaden Daniels, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and Malik Willis. Shout out from SoCal. Again, Broncos country, not a geographical location. It is, in fact, a hashtag state of being. I mean, Eric's up in Alaska. I'm in Wyoming. We've got Zach here in Boulder. I think John is in Fort Collins or the Littleton area, somewhere around in there. I mean, they're all over the place is where Broncos country is. It's a state of being, not a geographical location. Desmond Ridder, I know.
Just on Eric, that is, I just gotta say, I love that you have Desmond Ridder on there. He's quarterback 1 for me next year.
I was actually just about to drop that for you guys. Chase Wellner coming in here with a $5 super before we get back to the mock draft. It's anybody's guess, but do you think Atlanta will draft a quarterback or build for Matt Ryan?
Build for Ryan.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. But yeah, build for Ryan, just like we said earlier with the contract, it's going to be really, really tough to draft a quarterback and sit him for 2 years behind Ryan because you can't get out of Ryan's contract for the next 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And I got to say, is like when you bring in Arthur Smith, who was a big reason for Ryan Tannehill to turn it around, I think that you're looking at Arthur Smith to have Matt Ryan turn it around and be more consistent to help carry this team. And they want to add the pieces on defense because the defense has been a bigger issue than the offense has to sit there and really become this good team. So when they brought in Arthur Smith, I kind of started to shrug off a little bit that their desire to go get a quarterback. The Matt Ryan restructure basically cemented that for me. Mohamed Badri came in earlier with a $3 donation. Thank you, Mohamed. We really appreciate that. And we appreciate everybody who decides to super chat to the show. Without your guys' support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So we really appreciate every single one of you, no matter if it's $1.99, $50, however much. We appreciate all of you equally. Yeah, everybody, especially Muhammad here has got that mantra that I've so dubbed him with over the last few weeks, the king of the super sticker, man. I love the little pom. Is that a pear pom-pom thing? I'm not exactly sure what that is, but that's really nice. Let's get back to this mock draft. We're sitting here at number 71 overall, and let me blow my screen up here so I can actually see what we're looking at. We've got another linebacker at the top of the board, Jabril Cox. This is another guy that I really like. My guy, Richie Grant, is still available. Tommy Togiai, Diami Brown, a speedy wide receiver from North Carolina. Tylan Wallace. I just dropped a scouting report on Tylan Wallace. It should be coming up here soon. I'm just waiting on Chad to get that up for you guys at milehighhuddle.com. Make sure you guys go check out all of our Finding Broncos pieces. Eric is dropping, I think, daily scouting reports. I've got 2 or 3 coming a week. Let's see here. Carlos Basham Jr., the edge out of Wake Forest. The Broncos have some Wake Forest ties in there as well. Zach, we have the quarterback in tow, and we went and filled that linebacker position. What are you kind of looking at for as another hole to fill, or maybe even to build on some of the strengths of this roster?
The guy that I saw immediately at the top of the board there was Joe Tryon. I love him as a developmental edge. I think sitting him behind like Von Miller or Bradley Chubb for a year or so, and then allowing him to play would be phenomenal. It's kind of like we look at a lot of people when they're talking about Slater will be like, he's the one guy who held up to Chase Young in pass protection last season. Well, I would kind of do the same thing with Joe Tryon. He's the one guy who gave Penei Sewell the business. And of course, there's more to it than that, but his upside's unreal. I think you worry about his development some, but in the 3rd round, he's a guy I would consider somewhat in the 2nd round. If I can get him in the 3rd, and sit him for a year, I absolutely love it. I like Richie Grant too, but it's just like, and Jabril Cox and a lot of other players on the board. But for me, it comes down to edge versus kind of the value of those other positions. And you don't want to be caught with your pants down at edge. But what do you guys think?
The only other player that I was going to point out was, I'm glad you mentioned Joe Tryon. He was one of them, is Spencer Brown. I would absolutely love to pair Spencer Brown.
Ooh, is he on the board?
Under Mike Munchak. He's still on the board. He's a little bit down. I have to scroll down, but he's sitting at 87th overall prospect. So it's definitely an interesting conversation because outside of quarterback, these are probably edge and offensive tackle are probably the next two most valued positions. So I think that Spencer Brown, I think he's got a little bit higher upside, needs a little bit more work than Joe Tryon. And Joe Tryon, I think he's got a little bit higher of a floor, but still needs quite a bit of development before he can reach a ceiling. Definitely both of them developmental guys who can come in, sit for a year, and then take over as starter next year. So it's an interesting debate to have between the two.
So I want to interject here really fast because the guy sitting right above him on the board, you've got Jackson Carman, the offensive tackle from Clemson, and not quite the high end upside, but he's a more complete player, at least right now. So you're probably not going to have the higher ceiling, but you definitely have a higher floor. Now, Eric and I do another thing here, Zach, as far as what we do with our draft content. It's called Would You Rather. So would you rather take the more polished player in Jackson Carman here, or would you take the guy with the higher upside in Spencer Brown, knowing that obviously you have the Juwan James situation, but also Elijah Wilkinson signed with the Chicago Bears earlier this week, and you don't have a developmental right tackle that could potentially step in and play day one. Is Spencer Brown a guy that, well, Calvin Anderson, but that's okay. Yeah. Let's move past that. Like Jackson Carman has a higher floor, probably a lower ceiling, but he probably could be a guy that you could step in day one and play. Is Spencer Brown that kind of a player with you, and you want to bet on that upside, even though there is a little bit more development with that long and strong kind of guy?
I think there definitely is more development. I prefer to go there because I have Mike Munchak. Okay. And I see what he could be with Mike Munchak's development. If I didn't have Mike Munchak, if I had like a league average or below average offensive line coach situation like the Broncos have had for a long time. If we're talking the Broncos of 3 years ago, I probably do take Jackson Carman. But I think Spencer Brown's tools are so impressive that I think if Anderson went down and James went down and you had to start him, I think he could hold his own, especially with an off season and a couple weeks, like a preseason of some Mike Munchak coaching and a little bit of development. It wouldn't be ideal, but I think it could work out. And again, the upside there is absurd. Like I feel you go into the 2022 season feeling like we have a great pair, assuming Garrett Bowles continues to play well. We have a great pair of bookends in Bowles and Brown for the foreseeable future, where if Locke doesn't work out, or it's Fields, or Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder, whoever it is, they're going to be they're not going to have to worry about an edge pressure.
Okay. All right. So Eric, do we want to lock in Spencer Brown here?
It's tough between that and Trion for me. I will go Spencer Brown though. I am going to go Spencer Brown, and here's why. I know Eric thinks edge is the bigger need, and I think he makes a strong argument for it. But I think Bradley Chubb is definitely going to get locked up long term. I don't think they'll let him leave, and I think with the legal situation, they're not going to trade him for Deshaun Watson. And then I think Von Miller, the fact that they were willing to pick up that option makes me think they might be open to keeping him around long term in Denver, maybe a 2-3 year extension just so he's a Bronco for life. And then maybe is Trion sitting too long, 2-3 years. Spencer Brown we're gonna need a tackle next year definitively. So I'm for it.
Okay, yeah. It makes a lot of sense. I'm with you on what the situation with Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. I think that Von Miller is probably going to end up being a Bronco for life. They're going to extend him maybe a 2-year, $14 million deal on the back end of this, picking up the option for this year. So I think that you're going to at least have Von Miller. You can kind of pass. And I like some depth players in here. I'm wondering if Quincy Roche actually made it to the Broncos in the 4th round, because if you can get that, throw some bulk to him, and he's got enough quickness. There's some good length there. It's got some really good upside as far as developing some more technique. He's pretty solid, at least right now, would offer some really good rotational pass rush, and you could flip him into that Von Miller role in 2 years. Say you add 15 pounds to him, which he has the frame to be able to do so. So I think that's actually the way that I would go. I love Joe Tryon, don't get me wrong, but again, I do think that the offensive tackle position is a little bit more of a need because you don't necessarily know what you have at the right tackle position. At least you have two proven options at starters at the edge positions for this year. So I agree with you on that. Eric, what do you think?
I definitely agree. I view edge as it just has so many questions. Obviously, they can solve a lot of that by just making sure they extend Bradley Chubb and then keep Malik Reed around. Even if they let Von Miller go, keeping Malik Reed would be a big piece of the puzzle there. It's my biggest concern for edge is the fact that they're both free agents after this year. Now, right now, it's paused on this because there was a trade offer from the Jaguars where they were willing to give up 106 for 114 and a 7th round pick. Is there anyone on the board that really stands out to you as a guy that you want to move up for?
Ooh, I'm looking. I like Benjamin St. Juste as like kind of a developmental corner to sit. I do like some of the edge options, specifically Sample. I'm wondering if he could, and I also like Rashad too. Okay. I'm wondering if he could fall, but there are some guys like I do like Patrick Jones, and I bet I could get him, or not Patrick Jones. Shoot, I just saw that name go by. Who's the Patrick Robinson? He's the one out of Tulane, right? Am I thinking of the right guy, or I'm
out of Tulane?
Going blank. Cam Sample. Who's the other? Patrick Johnson. Patrick Johnson, I think, is who I'm thinking of. Maybe I'm making up a prospect out of thin air. I'm going crazy. Sorry. I can.
There's an edge from another edge from it. Let's see here. Patrick Johnson. Yeah, he's an edge from Tulane. He's more of a hybrid in my opinion because doesn't have the length. But yeah, he's another one that you can probably get a little bit later on as well.
I kind of like him as a way later option, but I do edge is so important, and I like the cornerback talent late is great too. So I'd be tempted to get an edge. Yeah, I don't mind burning a 7th round pick. Let's trade up and secure Cameron Sample. Make sure I get that talented developmental edge with upside to just as an insurance policy for Vaughn and Chubb. And if they manage to keep those two guys, like you said, Eric, they could lose Malik Reed, and Sample can be a great depth piece there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree with you guys. Go get the edge there, but there was 2 players that I really like in the secondary to bolster the secondary, especially long term, because the Broncos secondary right now, yeah, they've got Kyle Fuller, yeah, they got Ronald Darby, yeah, they got Kareem Jackson back on that. But this is the thing: you've got 1-year deals for Fuller, you've got 1-year deal for Kareem Jackson, you got a 1-year deal for Bryce Callahan. Cornerback depth right now this year is not necessarily a need, but it is a future need. And Trill Williams, a cornerback from Syracuse, was on the board, and that's a perfect scheme fit for what Vic Fangio likes to do. I think there's some versatility too. If you want to, instead of run this quarters match defense that the Broncos are doing right now, if you wanted to run some cover one, he has the athleticism to be able to do something like that. And he can play inside. You can slide him into the slot. Really good length and athletic. Again, at the athlete that he is. Scheme versatility there too. A developmental quarterback that can come in behind the high end. The high-end players that you have at the top of the roster. Trill Williams makes a lot of sense there. But then also our Darius Washington, the safety from TCU, I'm incredibly high on this safety class. In fact, I've said it multiple times now. I think that our Darius Washington, if he was 3 inches taller and 10 pounds heavier, he could be in the safety 1 conversation. There's enough versatility, enough physicality there, enough range, enough that athleticism that he could be a guy that you could go and get. And I do not like the safety depth. Behind Justin Simmons and Kareem Jackson, I'm not a Trey Marshall fan. There's not anybody on the roster that I really am a fan of. So safety is a position that I think that this team needs to really look at. And our Darius Washington fits the scheme. It's another reason why I like him and Richie Grant, is because there's so much versatility with those 2 players, and the physicality and the tackling ability that they have. Vic Fangio is going to like those guys coming into this roster. Now we're sitting here at pick 191. Again, like I said, the safety group is definitely something that I really want to kind of look at. I'm not liking Reed Blankenship. I'm not liking Divine Diablo. So to me, this is where the running back is kind of a priority to me. The running back position, you could maybe go and if you wanted to get another cornerback, but So looking at what we've got here, we've got Ellerson Smith, the edge, Josh Imada Baby, who had a 46.5-inch vertical or something like that the other day. Just an absolute crazy, insane explosiveness. Shaka Toney, the edge from Penn State, I actually like him. I think that you could drop him on and play him as some off-ball linebacker as well. Cornell Power, wide receiver from Clemson. It's depending on what the Broncos do with Cortland Sutton and a Tim Patrick. I think he's more prototypical Z receiver than X receiver, though. So that would be kind of an interesting fit with Jerry Jeudy. But if you scroll down here for me, Eric, just a little bit. Actually, he's right there at the bottom of your screen. Jarrett Patterson, the running back from Buffalo. I said it before, and I'm not going to say it again because it's not necessarily true. I went back and watched him again. Jarrett Patterson, I really like the physicality, but he's 5'8", like 195, ran like a 4.45 or something like that at the Buffalo Pro Day the other day. I said it as he's Philip Lindsay 2.0. They're different players with different skill sets, but the same kind of thing. Smaller, quicker, faster guys with pretty decent vision, good explosiveness, and really hard to see behind that line of scrimmage. So I really like Jarrett Patterson here.
I like Patterson a lot too. That's definitely an intriguing option. I wanted to bounce off what you said about the safety with our Darius Washington really quick. I kind of agree. I would rather take, in our Darius Washington and an Ellerson Smith or, a Patrick Johnson and I like Cameron Sample, and I do think edge is a more important position, but then you find yourself in the position at safety where, like right now, it's tough for me. Like maybe one of the Pitt guys, maybe Paris Ford opted out this year, and I didn't. Yeah, it'd be Hamlin or Paris Ford for me. But it's tough for me to love any of those safeties. It'd either be Demar Hamlin or one of the running backs, or I really do like Josh. Imator Bebe. I love the athleticism for him. I think he could be a long-term Tim Patrick replacement. What were you going to say, Eric? Sorry.
Let me pound the table for Demar Hamlin. I absolutely love him. He's in my top 10 safeties in his class. I love the versatility he brings. He can bring in any scheme. In the Vic Fangio's too high safety scheme that he runs, he fits perfectly. He's able to drop down and play the nickel. He's not the most reliable tackler just because he's got some tackling technique issues that need to be cleaned up, but they are something that's fixable. I view him as a better version of Will Parks and what Will Parks has brought to the Broncos as well. For a while, he's that guy, deep safety, dropping down in the nickel, can play in the box a little bit, and just provide an answer to covering tight ends. He's just extremely versatile. I'm a big fan of Demar Hamlin and what he can bring, especially for Vic Fangio's defense. At this point, I mean, I'm kind of with Lance in looking at our Darius Washington or Trill Williams earlier. At this point, I still look at the fact that we haven't really touched on defensive backs, and safety is kind of a need. We got to improve that depth here. And at this point, like Demar Hamlin, for me anyways, would be a no-brainer.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Paris Ford tested horribly at the Pitt Pro Day the other day. Yeah. And when I watched him on tape, it wasn't necessarily that I thought that he was slow like that. It was that he was just a little bit late with his reaction time because he was always in the at least right position for the most part to be able to make a play. But when you run 4.89 or 4.92 or whatever it was that he ran at the Pitt Pro Day, oh my goodness, that's dropping him down, kind of like Richard LeCount, the Georgia safety, who I was really high on preseason. I watched some tape of him, rangy player, big hitter. I really liked his tape as well, but he tested at 4.83 at the safety position, so that might drop him back. He was a guy that I was potentially looking at as like a 5th, 6th round guy. He might go undrafted because of his lack of athleticism. I'm with Eric here. Demar Hamlin all the way. If we're going to go safety, this is probably the right value for him. And in fact, I wouldn't surprise me if he actually goes higher than this.
Yeah, I agree. I think Demar Hamlin probably has to be the direction you go at safety, just because you need that insurance more than you need wide receiver or running back insurance. I think Mike Boone could be a stopgap guy next year, and you can always draft a running back next year and have him be instant impact. We see that happen more at running back than any other position. So I do like Jarrett Patterson, but for me, it'd be between the receiver and the safety, and the safety is the bigger need. You don't want to draft for need, but maybe it looks like Josh keeps falling. Oh, dang it. I was getting excited.
There is another wide receiver here that has explosive play potential in Jaylen Darden from North Texas. This kid is a lightning bug. Small, really quick, shifty kind of a kid. Brings another skill set, kind of similar to KJ Hamler, but I think he's a little bit better as a deep threat just because he has better body control than KJ Hamler does. KJ is more straight line speed than short area quickness, and Jaylen Darden does have that short area quickness to kind of get out of sticky situations that I really like there. Let's see here. What else do we got as far as some wide receiver depth? There's some names that I'm not really under. Amir Smith-Marset is one that I'm not necessarily too high on. Cade Johnson, no. Joshua Kindo, the edge from Florida State. Chris Evans, a running back. We haven't addressed the running back position yet. That's a guy that I kind of like. Had a fairly okay Senior Bowl. He wasn't one of the bright guys after watching Michael Carter just destroy some people. Eric, what do you think here?
Talking about receivers, this is a good point where I'd be looking at depth for it, just because we don't know what's going to happen with Deshawn Hamilton, Tim Patrick, and Cortland Sutton. They're both free agents next year, and we definitely need to see additional growth from Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler both, and Tyree Cleveland even. Running back is another one, but I think that running backs, you can do such a good job of finding guys after the draft or at like 253. There's just a lot of talent at this point that could come in and be part of a stable that I'm not really looking hard there. So it's definitely wide receiver. And the one that stands out to me is Josh Palmer. He's got good length. But he's got really good deep speed. And it's not that he's overly fast. I think he ran like a 4.53 40. He's just a smooth runner. And that can be very hard to defend against when running those 9 routes. And we saw what Pat Shurmur was able to do with a guy like Darius Slayton in New York, having this real true deep threat with this length and athleticism. And Josh Palmer, Denver doesn't have a receiver of that mold in it. The closest they have is Tim Patrick, and he's got this decent speed and everything. He's not the smoothest of the guys. His routes aren't the smoothest. And he's more of a 50-50 ball getter at times, guy who can get open and maximize on spacing and everything. So the receiver I'd be looking at is Josh Palmer at this point. Of course, Jaylen Darden, he's very similar to KJ Hamler. And while you can be kind of complimentary with those gadgets, I think it's a little bit of a issue there. And Amir Smith-Marset as well. If you want another really good route runner that's very smooth through his routes and can get open instantly, especially for Pat Shurmur's scheme, that makes sense. So Amir Smith-Marset or Josh Palmer are the two that I would be looking at the most.
What do you guys think about not going wide receiver and going with a cornerback like Tay Gowen? I saw some chats, but that was also – I'm a UCF guy. My brother went there, so I'm a bit of a UCF fan. I watch a lot of their games, just about all of them. And Tay Gowen's a guy who, before this year, like, you knew him as a star in that secondary. Of course, had opted out with COVID and all that stuff, and had plenty of reason to. He's a guy I feel like I'm a little higher on than the consensus. What do you guys think about him?
I actually don't mind that. I really like that UCF secondary with Richie Grant and then Allen Robinson. I think that's his name, right? Allen Robinson, the other cornerback from UCF. Yeah.
Aaron Robinson, I think.
Aaron Robinson. I said Allen. That's a wide receiver. Stop it, Lance. Tay Gowen, there's some hip flexibility issues to me. I don't think that he has the most flexible hips, but as a developmental player that you can bring in, again, this secondary that the Broncos have, they have 3 solid starting cornerbacks. They have Aseng Bassi as well coming up in tow. They also have Michael Ojemudia as well. So as a developmental cornerback, Tay Gowen is intriguing because UCF does run a lot of quarters coverage, and that's why Richie Grant and Aaron Robinson are so intriguing to me in this defense, because they play and they fit so well with what Vic Fangio wants to do. I think if you can slide him in and play some special teams with Tay Gowen early, that's probably the biggest impact for him. And you can always look to improve the special teams because the Broncos have been terrible there. So I don't hate it. I can get behind that pick.
I can get behind it because there's still good depth at receiver, and enough that where one of the guys that I mentioned, Josh Palmer or Amir Smith-Marset, are likely there at the next pick. So yeah, adding this extra depth, I can go with that.
That's kind of my thought. I feel like I can get Gowen and Palmer. I don't think I can get Palmer and then circle back for Gowen. Was kind of my thought process, because you made a compelling pitch, Eric.
So the one thing, and I kind of agree with you on that one, because you can get Gowen, and then Josh Palmer's there. Smith said is not there. But the one thing, there is some other cornerbacks that I like there on the board. In DJ Daniel from Georgia, I think there's some high end upside there. Again, same thing as Tay Gowen, some hip flexibility issues, not the greatest athlete, but really good length, really good strength, and aggressiveness, a strong tackler. And then Robert Rochelle, the cornerback from Central Arkansas, and both of those guys are probably still on the board here as well. Another name that I find kind of intriguing, because I saw something on Twitter the other day, I can't remember who it was from, but it was a big draftnik kind of a person, like Dane maybe, or Daniel Jeremiah, someone that is like a very well respected in the scouting community, talking about Tamorrion Terry, the wide receiver from Florida State, that is super sleeper, getting incredibly slept on, but it has wide receiver 1 potential. I don't necessarily think wide receiver 1 potential, but wide receiver 2 potential as an XZ hybrid kind of a player. I think that's another player that you could be looking at here.
Yeah, and I actually love the talent with Tamorrion Terry. The thing that scares me is some of the character stuff. But hey, we're looking at like Josh Palmer, Tamorrion Terry. We're talking about a 7th round guy. The odds that they're on the roster in 2 years is pretty slim. I don't mind taking big swings here. So it'd be between Palmer and Terry for me, honestly. I also like Dax Milne, kind of as a sleeper out of BYU. He's a guy that jumped off the tape to me watching Zach Wilson. And then, Jaylen Darden's fun. I just maybe he's a replacement for I'm spacing on the name right now, Deontay Spencer.
Right.
But those are the 3 jumping out to me. I'd kind of be torn between. What are you guys thinking?
Well, I'm going to let Eric round this one out and give you the final argument between those 3 players. How about that?
If I'm looking at it, I would probably go Josh Palmer personally. And if I'm looking at a smaller guy to try and potentially replace Deontay Spencer, I'm looking at Walt Fillior or even Jaylen Darden, one of those guys. But I think that having that 9 route guy who can provide that deep threat more consistently is the bigger option. I wouldn't go with Terry because, yes, the 7th round picks, they have such a long shot of making it already, but I'm not adding extra risk with the character and attitude stuff that's been going on with Terry. I'm going to take a guy who I've heard nothing but good things about him as a teammate and as a person, which would be Josh Palmer.
I love it. Let's do it. Let's lock up Palmer.
All right, and let's get this out and we'll run over this mock real quick. All right, so Zach had Denver trading up for Justin Fields. They got themselves a quarterback of the future. Obviously, you want him. There's a chance that he may bust, but if you don't have a quarterback, you need a quarterback, and you got to keep swinging until you find a quarterback. And he doubled up on Ohio State Buckeyes by getting Baron Browning, a linebacker who come in and start right away for the Broncos and be a big piece on this defense in a position where they are actually missing at. Is linebackers the one big hole on this defense that they got to get filled. Then he gets that developmental offensive tackle in Spencer Brown, who gets to sit hopefully a year under Jawan James, working with Mike Munchak, developing and being able to take over in 2022 as the right tackle. Cameron Sample, we ended up trading up for him and just needed some edge depth. And we talked about it a little bit in our Darius Washington, obviously, was a guy that we kind of missed on. Trill Williams was another name that was thrown out. But Cam Sample, I like what he can do, and I like his versatility. He can stand up in a 2-point stance and still get after the quarterback. He can drop his hand in the dirt, plays a 3-point stance as a 5 technique. He could even, on certain situations, run inside. He's not the smoothest of athletes or the most fluid, but he can definitely be effective on stunts that Vic Fangio is very well known for. Then at 191, I think I kind of talked Zach into getting my guy, Demar Hamlin. Extremely versatile guy who's top 10 safety for me. I love what he can do. I love his fit with the Vic Fangio defense. And he's got enough scheme versatility to where if there is coaching changes made after the season, he can still come in and fit with whatever you're doing, basically. Tay Gowen, he's another one that can be a versatile defensive back. I've seen a lot of talk about him being more of a nickel safety type. And he's just a guy who they did a lot of match quarters and stuff at UCF. So there's that natural fit into what Vic Fangio does. But he's got enough of a versatility there that he can fit in multiple schemes as well. And then Josh Palmer, another guy that I think I talked Zach into a little bit with his ability to be a 9-ball or a 9-route speed kind of option, but not overly fast, but he can go get those deep balls and get chunks of yards at a time. Just have to hope that Drew Lock is able to develop his accuracy on those deep throws a little bit. Overall, I would give this draft probably a B plus somewhere. The only pick that really that is a little bit bothersome to me is Cam Sample. I would have much rather gone Trill Williams at that point, get that better athlete, and looking at getting like an Ellerson Smith or someone like that a little bit later, which we discussed during the show. That's the only complaint I can have about this. Everything else I can live with. Getting that potential quarterback of the future is a big thing.
Yeah. Zach, go ahead, Zach.
Sorry, my bad. I agree with those notes. I think the moment I saw how the board fell, I was like, I should have locked up the defensive backfield depth there and followed back up on edge. I was just worried I'd have those edges poached and left with a bunch of guys I'm not super high on. But yeah, I definitely agree on that note. I also think some people are gonna love the Fields move. Some people aren't gonna like it. I just really quick pulled up the Vikings' last, few first-round picks. Jeff Gladney, Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson's great. Garrett Bradbury, Mike Hughes, Laquan Treadwell, and Trey Waynes. That's their last 6 first-round picks. I'd trade all 6 of those guys happily for a franchise quarterback. And if you don't believe Fields is that guy, you're not going to like the move. But I really think Fields is that guy. He's closer to Trevor Lawrence for me than he is to Lance and Wilson. And I really like Lance and Wilson as well. That's not a shot at those guys. I'd take those guys in the top 5 as well. Fields is really, really special. I think if he had 3 years to play in college like Lawrence did, he would be in the conversation for the number 1 pick. I think his sophomore slump, even though it wasn't his sophomore year, but his sophomore slump wasn't as ugly as Trevor Lawrence's. And we've saw what happened with Trevor Lawrence in year 3. You want to be the beneficiary of that potential Justin Fields year 3 league.
Yeah. Well, Zach, it was a pleasure to have you on, man. We got some super chats that we got to get here because we cannot leave any of our super chat superstars out in the dark. Guys, follow Zach Segars at Zach_Segars on Twitter, and make sure you guys check out all of his work at Mile High Sports. Congratulations. Thank you for joining the show. We really appreciate it. Great insight as always. And I'm looking forward to keeping the conversation rolling with you on Twitter, man. Thanks again. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me, and have a great rest of your night.
Thanks, man. We'll catch you later. And guys, there he goes. Thanks again to Zach.
Try to get you on again too, Zach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so going to rapid fire the super chats here real quick because we got to get out of here pretty soon. So let's go ahead and get them on here. Mr. Boggins with the $4.99 donation. I'm going to say this once just to get out of the way. Everybody who super chats, we really appreciate you guys. We appreciate all the money that you guys donate to us. It really supports us and allows us to be able to do what we do.
Yep.
Mr. Boggins comes in. So second overall value, 2,600 points. Fourth overall value, 800 points. Which would you swing for and what would you give up? Well, basically, I would kind of look at what we just did in the mock draft. I'd look at getting to number 4. I wouldn't do it until the draft, though. And giving up I would be willing to give up 2 additional first-round picks as well as 9, just because that's what we have to get to basically give up, or to get there, as we saw from the San Francisco 49ers. So, John, go ahead and pull up the next one. And Shadow Jack says, with the $5 donation, says, fellas, any late-round sleeper agents Denver can acquire? Off the top of my head, no. There's still some linebackers out there, but I think that for the most part, Denver's kind of just letting things slide a little bit. I still think that we will see a linebacker brought in before the draft, but we'll have to see what happens. I'm not sure it's going to be a big name. And as for sleeper, just no one comes to mind.
Yeah, there was one, I believe it was a former Baltimore Raven that Benjamin Albright was talking about that the Broncos have some interest in, just so you're aware. Check that out, BroncosCountryTonight.com. Go check out their podcast. Just wanted to throw that out there.
And then Andy Cowick comes in with a $10 donation. If you like quarterback enough, you have to take the shot. Bringing in a vet just feels like kicking the can down the same road they've been on for the last 5 years. This is spot on. This is exactly
Yep.
This is my belief and everything. You got to keep taking shots until you get it. Getting those veteran guys, it's just not. You're not really taking actual shots.
Yeah.
Levi Hope comes in with the $14.99 donation. Says, "Hey fellas, always great insight. Hey Levi, we appreciate you, and we're glad that you guys like our insight and everything like that. Even though sometimes we sometimes we do have takes that kind of annoy you guys a little bit, and we know that. But everybody has the right to their own opinion, especially when it comes to football."
Well, and sorry I get a little bit long-winded, so Eric's going to kind of wrap up these rapid fires. I was going to grab that one, but Eric, go ahead.
Jedi Joshua comes in with the $5 donation. Hey, man, it's good to see you and see you in the chat and everything like that. We don't see you here often all the time, but always enjoy talking to you on Twitter. Says, take a running back round 1 just to spite Nick. So when we first asked Zach on, the joke was I was going to try to convince him to take McCorkle Jones. That obviously didn't happen. But running back probably would have been the next one as a joke, just to spite Nick. Maybe we'll do a mock draft here a little bit, just us, and I'll just take nothing but running backs to spite Nick. Jacob Chase comes in with a $5 donation, says, I was watching some breakdowns on Parsons today. Some of the criticism was his processing speed and propensity to get out of position on misdirection. Both those are very accurate concerns with Micah Parsons. He's still developing as an off-ball linebacker. He entered into college as one of the top edges, actually, and then was moved off ball. So there's definitely some of that processing aspect issues. They're definitely there. They're in spades, especially when it comes into coverage. And some of his landmarks he doesn't seem to hit, especially. Yep. He does much better against the run between the tackles, but farther outside, you can see some issues. His athleticism and range helped cover a lot of them, but it's a thing of, in the NFL, he's not going to have as big of an advantage as he did in college.
I want to grab this one really fast because it's from our boy Joey Richards at JR Drafts on Twitter. First things first, before we get to the super chat, congratulations to Joey, who just signed on with Mile High Sports to be a content creator for those guys. Really proud of you, man. Thank you for joining the show, and we appreciate you for coming on last year. We want to get you back on here soon, and just again, appreciate your support, man. My people, LOL, missed a lot of this, but definitely will be rewatching. We appreciate your support, Joey, as always. And again, can't wait to get back and start talking with you on Twitter some more, man. Appreciate you. Is that – oh, sorry, that was my bad.
Jake King came with a $4.99 donation, said, should we add a running back via free agency or the draft, and who do you guys like? I'm of the philosophy you shouldn't ever sign a running back. Cases like Mike Boone are kind of an exception. It was a very cheap deal. He doesn't have a lot of miles on his tires. For the most part, I'm looking late day 3 in the draft, after the draft, finding guys, and you use them up, and then you let them go on their way.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. If you're gonna acquire a running back, it better be a day 3 pick. Unless you really, really fall in love with somebody, I can maybe get with a guy on like late day 2, 3rd round pick. But for the most part, you get your day 3 picks. Get a guy that you can come in, use and abuse, and then just discard when it's time to pay him, because running backs don't matter.
And then Martin Oeo comes in with a $5 donation and says, love seeing Fields in round 1. I don't want to bank on the 2022 quarterback class. Would suck to be stuck having to trade up for a guy like Spencer Rattler. I'm with you here. And I think that the NFL is showing what they really feel about the 2022 class. The San Francisco 49ers were willing to give up a lot to go get potentially Trey Lance. And if they were okay with those guys next year and they were okay rolling with Jimmy Garoppolo for another year, they wouldn't have done that. And I don't think that the next year's class is great. Their top guy for me, in all honesty, is Sam Howell, and Desmond Ridder. He's my favorite of the bunch. He's just not my top guy. Is for this year, he'd be quarterback 5 for me. Grading him, watching Diami Brown, Daz Newsome, Michael Carter, and Javonte Williams, and a bunch of defenses that they went against. My takeaway on Sam Howell is that right now he's not a top 20 pick, and he's their best one. Kedon Slovis, I'm not a big fan of. Spencer Rattler, he's the most talented quarterback physically. But there are so many character and attitude concerns with him that it's hard to take him in the first round for me, because I'm very big on those being very factored into it. So, John, are we all caught up on
Yeah, he just sent in the private chat. Oh, we got another one that just jumped in from Kyle Evans, jumping in here with the $5 super chat. It sounds like the 49ers won't take Watson. Do you see his trade value going down for us to scoop him up? We're not going to go into the details of all of that. If you want more information on it, you guys can go find it out for yourself. For me, Deshaun Watson is untouchable right now with all the legal investigations going on. However, if he is, if there's no charges, if there's anything, if he's acquitted of anything like that, that is a different discussion. However, I don't necessarily see his trade value going down, because he is still a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Like, just plain and simple. He's one of the best quarterbacks there is. He led the league in passing yards last year, guys. So I think that there's something to watch out there, but I don't think he's going to become available in the first place. And if he does, he's untouchable as of right now.
The biggest thing is what is going to happen in the NFL investigation. There's a lot of where that he's going to be suspended for the season. And the Houston Texans may decide that they'll take something just to get rid of him because of what's going on right now. I don't think it'll happen soon. I don't think it'll happen before the draft. And I don't think that the Denver Broncos will be on him. I'd be looking at Carolina for them taking the risk on it and everything like that. But yeah, if he ends up being suspended for the season, his value is definitely dropping.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're all caught up here, guys, and we're going to have to get out of here. But before we get into these matters of business, thank you Thank you all, every single one of you, Super Chat superstars, anybody watching this on YouTube that is subscribed to Mile High Huddle. Thank you so much for helping us reach the milestone of 10,000 subscribers. Like that means more than you guys know. Without you guys, we wouldn't have this channel. We wouldn't have the ability to be able to bring this content for you guys, any videos that Eric does. Because of your support, we are able to do this. And we mean that from the bottom of our heart. We really do. So thank you all for supporting Mile High Huddle. Now, John, I'm going to take the controls here. Guys, that's going to do it for us on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. You guys can find us on Twitter by finding me at Sanderson MHH and for Eric at Erick Trickel. While you guys are at it, follow at DVDD_pod. It's the easiest way to keep up with what's going on with the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. Also at the Mile High Huddle. That's the mother account. Breaking Broncos news and analysis, opinion articles, film breakdowns, anything to fit your Broncos fancy. That's where you're going to be able to find it. It's also the easiest way to keep up with in touch with what's going on with the entire Huddle Up podcast network, including the Huddle Up podcast, Building the Broncos, and Mile High Insiders. Facebook users, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. That's the wrong one. This is the one I wanted. Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. Become a supporter. Click the little blue Become a supporter button. You're going to get some premium content, including Kelberman's Corner that airs every Sunday at 12 Mountain Time. And as I'm going to throw it over to Eric here, the Trickel Zone. Eric, what do you got on the Trickel Zone this week?
Yeah, every Saturday at 12 Mountain Time at noon, you get to tune in and be able to watch me just talk about my top 10s at certain positions up until the draft. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be talking about wide receivers, my top 10 wide receivers, and my top 5 quarterbacks. Not doing top 10 quarterbacks because really after the top 5, anyways. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the receivers. I'm really excited for it. Obviously, with receivers, it's not a big need for the Broncos, but maybe something happens where they decide to try to move up and they throw a receiver in or something. Don't know what's going to happen. It's always worth doing your due diligence on these prospects because you just don't know what's going to happen. So make sure you come in and hit that supporter button. And even if you don't want to pay attention to the receivers and the quarterbacks, I still have the cornerbacks to do. I still have the edges. I still have offensive tackles, interior offensive line. I still have multiple other positions that I got to get to. It's going to be every Saturday, a different position or two, depending on how many I have for it, up until the Saturday before the draft. And then after the draft, we've got a bunch of different things planned. And you guys will just have to click a supporter and stay tuned for that stuff.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into that. I need to go check out that linebackers video you did the other day. I haven't got a chance to do that. Anyways, guys, huddleuppod.com. That's the merch tent, guys. You can get yourself a hat, you get yourself a t-shirt, there's a face mask, a hoodie, a coffee cup, there's a onesie for your baby if you want it, something for the guys, something for the gals, anything to suit your fancy. Huddleuppod.com. Get your merch, guys. And if you're not in a financial position and able to do so, or you just don't necessarily want to, the 3 easiest things that you guys can do, which we already just hit on one, subscribe. Wherever you guys are watching this, specifically on YouTube, subscribe to Mile High Huddle, wherever you get your podcast, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever it is. Subscribe to Mile High Huddle. Like every video or podcast you guys see. Get it out in front of as many Broncos fans as possible by sharing any content that you guys love. Those are the 3 easiest and most organic ways that you guys can help support the show. Calvin Hamilton coming in here at the buzzer with a $3 super. Definitely need to get us a tight end stopper. Let's go. The thing about the tight end stopper is it's not just a singular tight end stopper. It's a dual threat tight end stopper, and there's 2 players. You're going to need 2 players to be able to cover Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, those big athletic, George Kittle, another one, big athletic, fast guys that are just dominating at the tight end position. You're not going to have just a singular coverage linebacker that's going to be able to do it. You don't have a single coverage safety. Bracket coverage and stuff like that, 2 players are going to have to be the real key. But I don't disagree with you. Do not disagree with you. The Broncos got to go get a tight end stopper. Eric, before we get out of here, any last words?
Footment, oddment, blubber, and tweak.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. Harry Potter reference. Harry
in all seriousness, guys, thank you guys for a wonderful show. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks to Zach for joining us and doing a really great mock draft. Turned out very well. I know it's not going to make a lot of fans happy with what Denver gave up, but you got to get that quarterback. And if you're not taking shots, you're just being okay standing still and doing nothing. Like you can't have that and be successful in the NFL. Ended up being a good one. We definitely have some bigger plans for you over the coming weeks. I know in a couple weeks we're looking at getting a good friend of the podcast on, Luke Polglace. He's going to be talking about corners. Now we set this up before Denver went out and brought in Ronald Darby and Kyle Fuller, but we're still going to talk about some of these early corners and what they could bring for Denver because, hey, a 1-year deal for Kyle Fuller, Ronald Darby's injuries issues, corners still can be a need. I don't think it's the way they go, but it's still worth breaking down, especially from the fact that you get to get these breakdowns from a guy who coaches wide receivers. So you get to see it from the wide receiver take, something that I definitely can't bring to you. And it's definitely going to be an interesting show. We'll try to get Lance to not be as long-winded during that one so we can actually get Luke talking a little bit more. But thank you guys for a wonderful show. We will see you next week. And those of you guys who are Facebook supporters, I'll see you in the morning.
Yeah, man. Can't wait for that. Again, thank you all. Thank you to Zach Segars for joining the show. Shout out to him at Zach_Segars on Twitter, at Mile High Sports as well. Go check his work out there. Guys, thank you all once again for joining the Dove Valley Deep Divers. You all stay safe. Take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you guys same time, same place, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. We'll see you guys next week. And as always, before we get out of here, Mile High salute to our Super Chat superstars. And as always, go Broncos. Thanks, guys.